etc. I didn't go down the river.
I've swum in a lot of lakes, and I don't think I go in the river. One of the problems is the lack of flow. And if you look at what's happened up at on a number of occasions in our local lakes, we'll have some kids that swim in a cove that doesn't have a lot of activity. And in the summertime, the heat goes up, the mucus go up the nose, into the brain, and it kills them. So that's because there is not a constant flow of water through there. I just got back from Vancouver a couple of weeks ago. They have a lot of water. And the rivers they have don't look like this. They're running pretty fast, and they run under bridges, and there's a lot of water. And that whole project we had about the college going over the river and all that, well, we don't have the kind of water that Vancouver does. And I've seen it.
Also, that's actually a question that I asked my doctor, believe it or not, after I saw the WFAA report. And he said that at the levels that WFAA was reporting, it was not a factor for a normal, healthy adult, but for young children who are more susceptible, and also for the elderly who would be more susceptible, it would be an issue. But I think that would be an issue, in all fairness, I think that would be an issue with anybody who had an immune system problem.
I've been attending the North Central Texas Council of Governments, TMDL meetings, which are total maximum daily load, which is the amount of primarily PCBs that go into the water. And it varies a great deal up and down the Trinity. They're not really doing anything about it, but they're trying to study it, and they're trying to get federal grants and state grants to study it further to reduce the PCBs which come from industrial sites, and in some cases are just sedimentary in the riverbed. But they also have the problem with E. coli and other contaminants. And unfortunately, Trinity River Vision doesn't take care of it. Doesn't clean up any of the water in the lines where they
Well, you know, we who live on the north side and lived out there for a long time remember those old plants that were there. And, you know, they may have all closed up. We who lived out there and went through there remember them only too well. I remember Charlie McCaffrey. I don't know how many of you remember him or not, but he was a fireman and very instrumental in creating, of course, the North Florida Historical Society. He was always taking me down to that area when I decided to run for the city council and say, here, right here, I can tell you what's buried here. Over here, I can tell you. And, you know, and as I've watched the political process work for the last 20 years that I've been part of, nobody's for sure on anything until they dig it up, and then guess what? It's right where Charlie said it was, and it's pretty much what Charlie said it was. And I've said all along that I hated between Northside Drive and Paddock Bottom, the bridge, to be the councilman from that area, because it was an embarrassment. You know, when Bill Clinton came, you know, they let him land at Meacham, but they didn't take him down North Main. They don't take anybody down North Main because we don't want anybody to see those two damn old sexually oriented businesses down there and all those buildings that are falling down and everything, because there's no development and nothing's going to happen unless a project like this came along. And that's why I was so supportive of it. And we're now seeing great movement towards people that are interested in that land. Not that these are buildings, we don't own these buildings, it's the water district, but there's a lot of people that are coming in there and talking about development. If you haven't been to the Cat Stadium, you're missing something that's truly beautiful and a part of Fort Worth's history that we were able to say. So, you know, I've looked at it that way. Environmentally, this is the only way we're ever going to clean all that up. No private businessman in their right mind would go down there and say, I'm going to clean this up. Couldn't. This is the only way it would ever be cleaned up and used. And I don't know if you like Fort Worth, but that is a horrible sight out there. Until we do something about it, it is an embarrassment and shame on Fort Worth the way it is.
I'll ask the next question here. Is sort of relates to some of that. How much money has the Tarrant Regional Water District made from gas drilling, and where does that money go?
Wow, we have made a fortune. And let me tell you, I'm on that committee, and I've never seen checks like that. It's just amazing. What happened was when, and it's in this project, in this briefing paper, I made sure that we wrote that down so everybody would understand. That money that's coming in is off, of course, the land owned by the Tarrant Regional Water District. And the people that live in the district and the taxpayers are the ones that have purchased that land. And so, many years ago, when we created the contracts to sell water to these other entities, we made a contractual agreement with everyone that anything that was generated off of the land that was owned by the water district and paid for by you, the people that live in the water district. Not everybody lives in the water district. It's an amazing proposition. One of the panel members up here didn't realize it until he wanted to run for the water district that he didn't live, that didn't have property in the water district. You have to figure out where to go. What we wanted to do, from looking at this legally, is that we contracted them with all of those cities that we have revenue funds with and said any money that's made off of that, any investments from that land will be used for specific purposes and not for the operation and buying and selling of water. So that limited those funds, and it was for economic development and things like that. That's all written in here, and it sets out exactly who we contracted with and why that happened. And it's a lot of money. Well, we're going to write I think we obligated ourselves to like $236 million interest-free loan to the TIF just to jumpstart it. And so, and people get this confused. That is not tax dollars, but it's taxpayers' money. This is money off of these gas leases, which are phenomenal. And I said in this room many times, and I saw her earlier, Kathy Hurd educated all of us more than anybody will ever imagine about the gas drilling in Fort Worth. And I realized after that mayor's race was over, that's when Chesapeake's big kahuna in Oklahoma said, well, we haven't even started drilling in Fort Worth. Well, we didn't talk about that during that race because nobody had ever heard him say that. And so this is just, it's a phenomenon that we've got to even consider now as far as the water, in my opinion. I think it's a very dangerous proposition, personally. That's just my opinion.
Well, that's the water used to drill these wells too is 3 to 5 million gallons per, and we're looking at another 5,000 wells at least in the city of Fort Worth. So we're looking at a considerable amount of money there, but where this money goes is usually, and I think this is probably the case here, this was state legislation that probably the water district asked for. It can be changed.
No, it's not.
They do not?
No,
It can be changed, nevertheless. The water district should change it. We did this frequently in the city of Fort Worth. We would ask our legislators to write legislation that would favor the city. And ordinarily when you do that, as long as it doesn't cost anybody else any money around the state, they're very willing to vote for it because it's our problem and we want it, so we're willing to assume the risks. And all
it's in this briefing, and I had them write, and our lawyers did a very good job for y'all. You get a copy of this or they put it online for you. It's called the Tax and Middle Interest Income. It lays out when those contracts were done. It was in 1984, and it was really to protect the revenue bonds that have been issued by all this. It's an interesting concept, but it's all set out in here for you. I knew that would be a question, and I wanted it answered by somebody that could answer it. And what I did with this is, I hope, and I'm confident, that you can take this stuff I brought tonight, and if you made a public information request, so they want you to be specific about it, well, I've given you the specifics to ask your questions in here, and I'm confident that this is what you would find.
Jim, is there any reason that some of that money couldn't be used to reduce the taxing rate of the district or the cost of raw water to the city?
That's because of the contracts that were entered into. And I assume that if everybody wanted to go back to the table and pre-contract, I don't know any reason why you couldn't. It's all in there for you, so how that was done and when it was done.
Okay, from the audience. Will Trinity River Vision pay the $90+ million to replace the Fort Worth Police Fire Training Facility that must move? If not, who will pay for the new facility?
Well, I knew that was going to come up too, and that's in the briefing. Back when Mayor Bowman was the mayor, he began telling everyone that that old police and fire training facility was antiquated and was no longer really adequate. That's how long we've been talking about this. I remember in 1978 when I moved up on Grand Avenue.